Kerry in Scottsdale. Hi, Kerry. What are you doing?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for taking my call. Happy Friday to you guys.
You as well.
The biggest issue for the 49ers is the arrogance of Kyle Shanahan. And I totally agree with you, Willard. That arrogance perpetuates through the offensive line, where they have not made the investment other than Trent Williams. And the O-line, if you were to compare the Niners championship teams with the current teams, what they had for their title winning championships, they had one of the best offensive lines in football. And now they don't, and they need to invest in that. And it's the arrogance of Shanahan, who thinks he has a system that can overcome having a mediocre offensive line, so they invest in other areas. Until they get the O-line together, they're not winning a Super Bowl.
I agree with your concept. I don't necessarily agree with the reasoning behind it.
The arrogance,
Yeah,
Mark.
Kerry, I get it. I don't think Kyle Shanahan doesn't think he needs a good offensive line. I think that Kyle Shanahan thought that he had an O-line that can do really well, like with Trent Williams as the anchor running the football. And they had Christian McCaffrey, and then they had a seventh-round rookie who performed really well but then lost his arm. And again, they went out looking at Tom Brady in the offseason, and I firmly believe Kyle when he says this. I really do. I don't think they were looking at Tom Brady because they didn't believe in Brock. I think they were looking at Tom Brady because they weren't necessarily believing that Brock was going to be ready and healthy. So would you invest in, let's make a really good pass-blocking entity with a seventh-round rookie with no arm? I think that they thought they probably would be maybe even more based on the run this year than they were. But then Brock was back. He was healthy. He performed unbelievably, and this evolved throughout the year. But then they got caught with their pants down to a certain degree. Let's not forget they went all the way to the overtime of the Super Bowl.
Right.
But they got caught with their pants down a little bit. When teams tried to make them throw, they couldn't do it as consistently as you'd like. And I'd argue the number one reason was not the receivers, not the quarterback, but the protection.
I would say it's all, complimentary in that way. And you had Debo and Ayuk have trouble in many ways separating in the Super Bowl. They were open at times, and when they were open, the protection broke down. And the few times the protection was there, those guys weren't able to separate and get open against man coverage in the second half. And this whole notion of the offensive line, it's not so easy to rework an offensive line. Like what you're saying, well, they had a quarterback who was hurt, so yeah, you wanted to have an offensive line that could run the ball, and then your quarterback is back, so now you want an offensive line that's better at pass blocking. You can't just interchange parts that easily. You draft offensive linemen, you hope they're good, you hope that they can come through your system and start and play and be good. Then you go out and you get free agents, and you got Trent Williams, and he gets paid a lot of money, and he's a Hall of Famer, and so you have him. But you can't just go out and grab offensive linemen because the good ones have jobs, and the teams that have good ones don't want to let them go. So the O-line is a very difficult thing to patchwork and fix in real time.
No doubt, yeah. I mean, listen, they didn't pay McGlinchey. Did that bite him? I don't know. McGlinchey wasn't perfect either. But I know everyone wants them to invest in the offensive line. Well, okay, then they're going to not invest somewhere else. So if there's big money on the O-line, who's the current 49er in a different position group that you'd like to get rid of?
And they have invested in the offensive line. They drafted Jalen Moore, 5th round, 2021. Colton McKivitz, 5th round, 2020. They drafted Spencer Burford, 4th round, 2022. They drafted Aaron Banks, 2nd round, 2021. These are players that they drafted. So you can say...
Those aren't early rounders, though, other than Banks.
Right.
And Banks has been good.
Who did they have in an early round in those years? They had Trey Lance. So in 2022 and 2023, you didn't have early round picks. So you want them to get a highly drafted, highly talented offensive lineman, but you don't have the pick to do that. So they made these picks before thinking that these guys would be good. And you know what? They were good enough to get you to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they weren't bad.
So let's not, I don't want to just disparage this offensive line as being trash.
No,
Can it be better? You're not saying that.
I don't think that at all.
I don't want people to do that because this line was good enough to give you one of the best offenses in football this year.
I do think if the Niners had ended up, there are a number, and Sam Darnold's one of them, by the way. That's why you and I have disagreed all year long about that idea of, like, would there be a drop-off? I think there would have been a terrible drop-off, and it's probably the most under-discussed characteristic of Brock Purdy, which is that he's really good when the pressure comes, and a lot of QBs aren't. And so I don't think that that is interchangeable. I think that the 49ers survived that actually because Brock does so well in those situations. And but that's not what you're going for, though. That's not what you're going for. So, yeah, offensive line needs to perform at a higher level. I firmly believe offensive football is largely about the offensive line. There are tons of quarterbacks who can perform with a great offensive line and very few who can't if the O-line is bad. Like, that's your indicator to whether or not a football team is going to be good. When you get those outlier years, Case Keenum takes the Vikings to the playoffs, Nick Foles wins a Super Bowl. A lot of times I'm like, yeah, take a look at the offensive line. Amazing offensive line play. Those quarterbacks can sit back there and spin it, man. Even the backups, if you've got time. So that's what I'd love to see for Brock. I'd love to see him get a bunch of time.
Brock was, the Niners with Brock were 16th in the league in regular season in pressure percentage, which is dead in the middle. There were 15 quarterbacks pressured more. There were 15 quarterbacks pressured less.
Yeah.
Then that includes all dropbacks. It was a 20.1% pressure percentage. So in just that one metric, Mark, the pass protection was just about middle of the road.
Let's go to Doug in Berkeley. Hey, Doug. What's going on? You're on with Willie and Dibby.
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. An earlier caller gave Dibs some love, but he deserved. I didn't think I would do this soon, but I got to give Mark some love today.
Yeah.
This conversation is right on. I've been saying all season, Purdy goes to his read so well. Give this kid just a little bit more time. He hangs in there. He takes hits. He is something special, and he's going to be something special. I think the offensive line would be the one place, and it is complicated as to how to do it, like you guys are talking about, but I think the offensive line is the one place that I would really, really focus on. Because if you give this kid a little bit more time, if Shanahan hadn't gotten outsmarted by Spagnuolo a couple times, and the kid had seen Brandon Ayuk out there, the whole game would have been different. He's a keeper. He's tough. Give him just a little bit more time, and we'll make it over the top. I totally agree with you about the emphasis on the offensive line. Thanks for taking the call.
Yeah, Doug, thank you. Appreciate it. And I needed some love. So good thing Doug was right on time.
It was good, Doug, but factually you're a little bit off the mark. Not in your love for Mark, but in terms of pocket time. Brock Purdy had the fourth most pocket time in the NFL. And that's the average time that you have between the snap and throwing the ball or not throwing it because the pressure breaks you down.
But
pocket time,
But
Mark.
Analytics get confusing because you just said he was pressured right at 15th
20%,
or 16th in the league.
Exactly.
So what's the difference between pressure and pocket time?
Well, pocket time is the average. So the pressure comes on 20% of your dropbacks, but the pocket time you have, maybe the pressure comes later because you hold the ball longer. So if you hold it for 4 seconds and then a guy gets to you, that still counts as a pressure, even though you had 4 seconds of pocket time. Are you feeling what I'm putting down?
I understand it, but I kind of don't also.
If I hold the ball in the pocket for 6 seconds, 7 seconds, 8,
that's the part
9,
that I get.
I'll keep counting.
That's the part that I get.
You can't make me stop.
But Brock's not a holder.
No.
Like that,
but he
do
will.
You have that stat? Who holds the ball the longest in the NFL of the QBs?
I can tell you as far as hits goes, and
I don't need hits. I need holds.
Hurries? You want hurries?
I'm holding. I'm not hitting. Hits? Yeah, I got an 18, and the dealer's got a 7. I'm holding.
Total pressures, he was 19th because he doesn't have that many dropbacks. So
that's total. Yeah,
total pressures.
We need per something.
Holds per pass, HPP? Are you down with HPP?
Yeah, you know me. All right, that got confusing. Let's go to Dollar Bill in the city.
Come on, Dollar Bill. Who do you love?
What up, Bill?
Who do I love? I love you, Debbie, but I've been with Marky Mark since the evening calling days of the other station.
Oh, yeah.
Marky, my boy.
That's right. 107 wins, Dollar Bill. $1.07. How's it going since then?
Yeah.
Just saying.
And a first-round loss.
It's because I left.
There you go. So,
October 1.
It may be. All right, yep. I've been listening to the 49, all these 49er fans, the last 5 days lose their minds. And I just wanted to offer a little perspective. You guys honestly were a failed 3rd and 5 with 2 minutes to go away from having a parade and everybody comparing Brock to Joe. So you're not that far away. And before you burn the house down, I would just like to say, things could be worse. You could be a Cleveland Browns fan. You could be a Jets fan. Take it from one.
Oof.
And I'm just saying that, you've been on top. Kyle, all these calls for, hanging Kyle up to me is insane because he's gotten you to the mountaintop, within the sight of the mountaintop for the last 5 years. Guys, you're not that far off. Let's not burn the house down when you get your foot caught in the door. That's all.
No one's looking to burn the house down, Dollar Bill.
No, I'm with Dollar Bill. Yeah, a lot of people are.
Not burn the house down. You're looking to, maybe make some changes.
Firing your head coach is burning the house down.
Nobody wants to fire Shanahan.
Yes,
if you want
they
to fire,
do.
then those people are lunatics, Mark. And if you want to,
I couldn't agree more.
If you want to give life to the lunatic fringe, then that's on you, and that's on Dollar Bill too.
I don't think it's the fringe, bud. I really don't.
Pal, it's the fringe.
Chief. Well, that's probably the wrong one to use. Anyway.
Coach.
Yeah. It just, like, whether the word is fire, let me take it to the next step.
He needs an offensive assistant.
Yeah, like
he needs someone to come and hold his hand.
Put his hat in his hand and get the hell out the way. What the hell are we talking about? What are we talking about?
We're talking about improving the offensive line, getting a defensive coordinator we don't hate.
But you improve the team every year no matter what. I'd agree with that even if they'd won. I'd say the same thing. The offensive line needs to protect in past situations better than they did. I'd say that even if the final score of this game was 22-19 in favor of the San Francisco 49ers. Okay? Like, it really was that close. And it doesn't mean Kyle's perfect, and it doesn't mean Spencer Burford's not, or Darrell Luter, or whatever. But any one of those plays goes the other way, and we're still picking confetti out of our bags because of what happened 2 days ago. Okay? So, like, that's a very fair point that I don't think really has a rebuttal. It is pretty wild for anybody to consider any wholesale or significant change when you lose a Super Bowl in overtime. That's really a wild concept to walk out of that and go, what we're doing's not working. Really?
I do think that's a very small minority of fans.
I don't.
Well,
yeah.
You and I traffic in different parts of the internet.
Well, no, I don't even mean Twitter. Everywhere.
Right, and that's emotion, and here we are now 5 days removed, and when we get 10 days and 20 days and 50 days removed, we're all going to feel a little bit differently, and this is part of the Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief model. There are people who are still in the anger portion. They're angry, and when you're angry, Mark, you want to blame, because you can't just be angry and say, you know what, I'm angry at Patrick Mahomes. Well, yeah, you're angry that he was so much better in overtime, but you got to be angry at your own team, and that's where a lot of fans still are.
Sure.
And when you're going to be angry at your own team, you can be angry at Spencer Burford or Darrell Luter Jr. or Jake Moody in a block PAT or George Kittle for not going on a fumble or Christian McCaffrey for fumbling. You can direct your anger wherever you want, but ultimately the best place to direct your anger is to the top. And that's why some people are still angry with Shanahan.
That's fine. And I'm not even here suggesting that it was a perfect or imperfect game plan. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is my parenting sort of muscle here, but plans, cool. What the hell's that got to do with how the day works out?
Right.
Your plans? Oh, Kyle's game plan. Great. Game plan actually was fine. Came out slinging the ball all over the place. They were crushing the Chiefs. Okay? So game plan was fine. Then you got to adjust. People will take shots at the adjustment. I think there is some room there. There's some room there. Nobody is saying, and again, I'd say this win or lose. You get to an off season, you get to the end of any day in your life, you go to bed and you look at a few things and you be like, I'm going to try to not do that tomorrow. Let's do that a little bit better. That's inherent to any job that we do or any life that we live. But the idea, as I said, I'll say it again, slower, major change, significant change when you lost the Super Bowl in overtime, I think is crazy. Of course, the base concept of what you're doing is run it back.
Of course.
You're right freaking there.
But you can't just run it back because Adam Peters is gone and Anthony Lynn is gone and you've got 19 free agents and all the rest.
Changes every year, sure.
Changes all over the place.
But
so
not
now
big ones.
Well, it depends on how big you want to make those changes. And that's where I look at Brandon Ayuk. And if I'm in the front office, I take a hard look at where we are cap-wise, where we are scheme-wise, and what we can do to keep this thing moving forward. Do you want to pay 2 wide receivers upwards of 40 or 45 million a year for a team that runs the ball more than 50% of the time? That to me feels a bit like a waste of resources. It's like when you have a household,
I don't know.
And you have a household where there's you as a driver and there's your 17-year-old as a driver. Do you have 4 cars? It would feel foolish if you had 4 cars.
Okay,
now,
but
could you have 3 cars? Maybe you have an extra leisure car that you want to have for your leisurely weekends with the lovely Christy. Okay, but you're not going to have 4 cars, and you're not going to have a 12-passenger van for a household of 5.
Kawakami's point to us earlier, however, is a good one and a fair one. And it's no different.
Lean on Kawakami.
No, Monty Poole said the same thing to us last year about Draymond Green when everybody wanted to trade him. What did he say? It was the very first thing you're going to do if you try to trade Draymond Green is what?
Replace Draymond Green.
If you trade Brandon Ayuk, what's the first thing you're trying to do?
Maybe you have him already in-house.
Who?
Jawan Jennings.
He is not Brandon Ayuk. He's not even built that way. He's not going to run routes like that.
A good blocker. He could block like Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, they're both very good blockers.
That's what you need, job number one.
I think Jawan is really good at exactly what he already does. Like, I do not. Jawan Jennings, to me, is not a WR1 or WR2. He's WR3.
I would argue that it's easier to replace Brandon Ayuk than it is Draymond Green. That's where I think the argument breaks down.
I would agree with you.
And not only for pedigree and resume, but just the type of player.
Well, okay. You
got wide receivers up the wazoo these days.
Yeah.
Literally from wazoo.
But not good ones. Who's the best wide receiver from wazoo?
Or
in your wazoo? Or whatever.
It was a reach.
Yeah, I mean.
Grady didn't even give me a 1. He gave me the head shake.
He's like, come on.
I hate a head shake.
No wide receivers from wazoo.
Oregon sweatshirt.
Come on.
Sure they have a wide receiver, but.
ASU, that would be, Brandon Ayuk. I'm telling you, man, I get what you're saying. $50 million for 2 receivers sounds like a nut job behavior, but if
for a team that loves to pound the rock.
Did you learn any lesson from DeForest Buckner? I was traded. We'll just go get another one. How's that working out?
You made it to the Super Bowl.
And?
Javon Kinlaw was a guy who played.
What happened last year?
He played actual football.
Yeah, he played. I love that that's the best thing we can say about him. He had a uniform and everything.
He got down in a 4-point stance and tackled people
He got
on
his
occasion.
butt thrown all over the field in Philadelphia last year.
This year he was much better.
He was.
Don't make me call Larry Krueger.
But he'll never get mistaken for DeForest Buckner. So when you let somebody go.
They chose Eric Armstead instead of DeForest Buckner. That was their choice.
Absolutely. When you let somebody go and you think you can just go replace him in the draft, you're usually wrong. I would argue that that's the truth in the NFL.
Then just pay 2 receivers $50 million.
Remember when they let Jimmy Garoppolo go and they're like, it's okay, we'll go get a quarterback in the draft.
And they did.
Uh-huh.
Eventually.
By the way, wide receiver from Washington State, Niners legend River Craycraft.
Thank you.
Currently a Miami Dolphin.
Currently a Dolphins. There's a bunch of former Niners out there doing big things.
No, they're all Dolphins.
Richie James, Super Bowl champ.
Oh, 8 fumbles.